Caleb Rourke moved through the bitter glass range as if the mountain had shaped him and then decided to keep him. Snow rose to his knees with every step, dry and whispering, folding around his boots like a living thing. His buffalo hide coat was pulled tight across his shoulders, its weight familiar, its smell of smoke and high grounding. A string of rabbits knocked softly against his thigh as he walked, each step measured, patient, unhurried. At 40 years old, with 12 winters carved into his bones, Caleb trusted this land more than he trusted memory, and far more than he trusted people. The mountains were honest. They warned before they killed. Men rarely did. The sky dimmed early, thick clouds lowering like a closing fist. By the time Caleb reached the narrow shelf where his cabin rested, the world had begun to vanish again, swallowed by falling white. His home was pressed against a granite wall, its roof low, its lines simple, smoke rising straight from the stone chimney he had built with his own hands. It was not much, but it endured. That mattered. He brushed snow from the door, stepped inside, and shut the storm away. The cabin smelled of wood smoke and cold iron. Caleb hung the rabbits by the door, added split pine to the fire, and poured himself a cup of coffee, so bitter it bordered on medicinal. The single room was unchanged, as it always was. A rope bed in the corner, a scarred table, and 2 chairs. Shelves lined with jars filled during the short, frantic months before winter claimed the passes. His father's old rifle rested above the hearth, oiled and ready. Every object had been earned, and every object reminded him why he lived alone. Loss had driven him here, one blow after another. A brother swallowed by a gold claim that never paid. Parents taken by sickness that moved faster than prayers. And a woman who chose safety over love, leaving Caleb with nothing but the hollow echo of hope. After that, he stopped asking the world for anything. The mountains demanded effort and attention, not promises. That was enough. He had just begun cleaning his rifle when the sound came. A knock. Soft, uneven, almost lost beneath the wind. Caleb froze. No one traveled these slopes in December unless they were foolish, desperate, or dangerous. Another knock followed, weaker than the first. Then a voice, thin and shaking, pressed through the wood. Please. Someone, please help us. Caleb stood slowly, his hand drifting to the pistol at his hip. Outlaws use tricks. Desperation wore many disguises. Still, there was something in that voice that set his teeth on edge. Fear stripped bare. He moved to the door, careful, silent. Who's there? He called. 2 voices answered, overlapping. One younger, one older. Please, sir. We're freezing. We'll die out here. Caleb closed his eyes for a heartbeat. Every instinct he had honed screamed to keep the door barred. But the sound of those voices tugged at something he had buried deep and never named. He lifted the wooden bar and opened the door a hand's width, rifle raised. 2 women stood on his threshold, snow clinging to them like a second skin. The younger was around 30, dark hair plastered to her cheeks, eyes too bright with strain. She supported an older woman whose knees trembled, whose face had gone gray beneath the cold. Their coats were thin, their boots split, their hands raw and shaking. Each clutched a small bundle, all they owned in the world. Please, the younger woman said. We followed your smoke. We've been walking since yesterday. She can't go any farther. The older woman sagged, a broken sound leaving her throat. Caleb did not think. He reached out, pulled the door wide, and caught them both. Inside, he said, "Now." He shut the door hard, sealing the storm away, and guided them to the fire. They shook uncontrollably, breath coming in painful gasps. Caleb pulled blankets from his bed and pressed them into trembling hands. Sit close. Get the wet things off. I'll heat water. He turned his back, offering privacy without trust, listening as frozen fabric peeled away and sharp breaths filled the room. When he handed them steaming cups, the younger woman took hers with shaking fingers. Thank you, she whispered. My name is Anna Whitlock. This is Eleanor Finch. Her voice faltered. We're widows. We were trying to reach Ashridge Crossing before the storm. Caleb nodded toward the window where white erased all distance. You're lucky you found this place. The past will be buried by morning. Anna swallowed. We were driven out of Red Hollow. They said we brought misfortune. Eleanor's husband was killed in a card fight. Mine died in a tunnel collapse. After that, everything that went wrong became our fault. Caleb felt his jaw tighten. He knew how fear sharpened itself on grief. "You can stay until the weather breaks," he said. "No payment." Eleanor reached out and gripped his sleeve, her hand warm now, steady. "You're kind, Mr. Rourke." Caleb looked away. Kindness was a door he had closed long ago. Yet as the fire crackled and the storm howled outside, the cabin no longer felt like a refuge carved from solitude. It felt occupied, altered, alive. Caleb stared into the flames, knowing with a weight he did not yet understand that this night would not leave him unchanged, and that the quiet life he had built so carefully was already beginning to fracture. The storm did not loosen its grip after that first night, but settled deeper into the valley, pressing the cabin into a world reduced to firelight and breath. Morning arrived pale and uncertain, light filtering through frost-clouded glass as if asking permission to enter. Caleb Rourke sat in his chair near the hearth, arms crossed, telling himself he had slept enough. In truth, he had dozed in fragments, listening to unfamiliar breathing, measuring every sound. Habit told him vigilance was survival. Something quieter told him it was fear. Anna rose first. She moved softly, careful not to disturb Eleanor, who slept curled beneath layers of blankets. In the clearer light she looked steadier, though shadows still clung beneath her eyes. She braided her hair with practiced motions and glanced at Caleb. "You should have woken us," she said. "You look worn thin." "I've been colder," Caleb replied, stretching his neck until it cracked. The answer came easily. The concern in her voice did not. Eleanor woke soon after, slower but stronger than the night before. She studied Caleb with a calm that felt earned rather than assumed. "Anna told me what you offered," she said. "Shelter without questions." Caleb shrugged. "Storm made the choice." Eleanor smiled faintly. "Storms reveal more than they choose." Breakfast was simple and shared. 3 bowls on the table unsettled Caleb more than he expected. He watched the women carefully, measuring movements, listening for signs of deceit. He found none. Anna cooked with efficiency, careful to stretch supplies, while Eleanor spoke sparingly, choosing words like stones placed for crossing water. By the time Caleb pulled on his coat to check traps, the cabin already felt altered. Outside, snow had climbed halfway up the walls. Trees bent low, creaking under the weight. The cold was sharp but familiar, and Caleb welcomed it. It did not ask him to explain himself. When he returned, carrying a small bundle of game, he stopped short. The cabin was swept. His spare shirts were folded. Eleanor sat mending a tear with hands steady despite their stiffness. Anna stood by the stove, heating water. "We're not claiming anything," Anna said quickly. "Just keeping busy." Caleb nodded, unsure how to respond. Words felt clumsy here. The day passed in this uneasy balance. As night fell, wolves appeared at the edge of the clearing, their shapes dark against the snow, eyes catching firelight. Anna stiffened. Eleanor's hand tightened around her mug. "They won't come close," Caleb said. "They know this place." That night, the wolves vanished, but their presence lingered. Anna sat closer to the fire. So did Eleanor. And without acknowledging it, so did Caleb. The storm held for days. In that enforced stillness, habits formed. Anna cooked and sang softly under her breath. Eleanor told stories of places passed through and people left behind, each tale carrying quiet lessons. Caleb fixed small things he ignored for years, a loose hinge, a crack in a wall. It felt dangerous to notice how natural it all seemed. On the 4th morning, the storm weakened. Caleb returned from checking traps to find Anna struggling with a frozen water bucket. He reached to help without thinking. Their hands touched. Anna pulled back sharply. Caleb stepped away just as fast. Neither spoke, but the air between them tightened. Eleanor watched from the doorway. "You both act like the world has already decided your fate," she said gently. It hasn't. That night, Anna brought out a small whistle carved from wood. She asked if she might play. Caleb nodded. The melody was soft, uncertain at first, then steadier, filled with longing and restraint. It carried loss without drowning in it. When she finished, the silence felt full. Again, Caleb said. She smiled, surprised, and played a lighter tune. Eleanor hummed. Caleb felt warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the fire. The storm finally broke on the 7th morning, leaving behind a world buried and bright. Caleb sensed trouble before he heard it. Horses, voices. Anna and Eleanor went still as he barred the door. A man's voice carried across the snow. Caleb Rourke. We know you're in there. Caleb recognized him. Grant Hale. Marshal by title, opportunist by nature. Two men stood with him, eyes sharp with intent. We're looking for two women, Hale called. Accused of theft. Track them this way. Anna's breath caught. Eleanor closed her eyes. Haven't seen anyone, Caleb replied evenly. Hale laughed. Mind if we look? Caleb stepped outside, rifle clear. You step closer, you won't step back. The standoff ended with a warning shot and promises of return. When the men left, the silence roared. They'll come back, Anna whispered. Caleb nodded. With more men. He paced, thinking fast. You can't leave the valley. Trails will be watched. We go higher. He told them of old mining caves along the ridge. Eleanor's ankle slowed them, but she did not protest when Caleb lifted her. Anna carried Pack's jaw set. They moved at dawn, carving a path through snow. When Eleanor fell and could not rise, Caleb did not hesitate. Hours later, they reached an abandoned camp. Caleb built a fire too large, scattered signs of rest. They're watching, he said. At nightfall, they slipped away and reached the cave as torches appeared behind them. Inside, darkness swallowed sound. Tools struck stone. Caleb guided them deeper, toward a forgotten exit. When gunfire erupted near the far opening, hope faltered. Then another voice cut through the chaos, sharp and furious, and rifles answered from the trees below. The tide turned. By dawn, the pursuers were gone. The women were safe for now. As they rested in the cold blue light, Caleb understood the truth he had been resisting since the first knock. Protecting them had already cost him the solitude he once believed essential. And despite the danger still ahead, he knew he would not choose differently. Morning arrived thin and blue, light sliding over the snow as if unsure it was welcome. Caleb Rourke stood at the mouth of the trees and watched the last riders vanish into the distance. Their retreat hurried, their confidence broken. The forest slowly reclaimed its silence, broken only by Eleanor's uneven breathing and the soft wind combing through frozen branches. Danger had not disappeared, but it had loosened its grip, and that was enough for now. They made their way to a safer cabin by midday, a place belonging to a hunter Caleb trusted with his life. Warmth returned in cautious stages. Eleanor's ankle was bound properly, her color improving with rest and broth. Anna moved through the space with quiet purpose, gratitude in every motion. Caleb sat apart at first, the weight of recent choices settling into him. He had crossed a line he once believed permanent, and there was no pretending otherwise. Word traveled faster than expected. Evidence of Marshal Hale's corruption surfaced through men who had grown tired of paying for his silence. Within days, federal authority reached the valley, official and unyielding. Hale was arrested without ceremony, his protests swallowed by the cold air. The accusations against Anna and Eleanor collapsed just as quickly, built as they had been on rumor and convenience rather than truth. When their names were cleared, Anna cried without shame. Eleanor closed her eyes and breathed as though setting down a burden she had carried too long. Freedom, Caleb learned, was not the same as direction. When the matter was finished, the women stood uncertain, their path suddenly unmarked. Ashridge Crossing waited beyond the valley, offering roofs and rules, neighbors and noise. Caleb's cabin waited too, empty again if he chose it to be. The choice pressed on him harder than any storm. They traveled together to Ashridge Crossing, slow but steady. The town was small, built of wood and optimism, its streets muddy even in winter. There, amid ordinary life, Caleb felt the full weight of how much he had changed. He watched Anna speak with shopkeepers, saw Eleanor rest without fear, and realized he did not want to return to silence alone. One evening, standing beneath the dim glow of a lantern outside the boarding house, Caleb spoke. He did not dress his words in poetry. He spoke plainly, the way the mountains had taught him. He told Anna that his life had been shaped by loss and hardened by choice, but that he no longer wished to face the seasons alone. He told her he could offer work, shelter, and honesty, and that love, if it came, would come slowly but real. Anna listened without interruption. When he finished, she reached for his hand, steady and warm. She said she was not looking to be saved, nor willing to be hidden from the world again. But she saw in him a man who acted when it mattered, and she trusted that more than promises. She accepted, not as surrender, but as partnership. They were married quietly, witnessed by Eleanor and a handful of townsfolk who sensed something solid in the union. There was no grand celebration, only shared food, gentle laughter, and a feeling of rightness that did not need embellishment. Caleb stood straighter than he had in years. Anna smiled as though something in her had finally found rest. They returned to the cabin when the passes softened, bringing supplies and plants. The work was hard and constant. Walls were extended, windows added, a second bed built. Eleanor moved in as family rather than guest, her presence anchoring the household with wisdom and patience. The cabin changed, not losing its strength but gaining warmth. Life settled into a rhythm that felt earned. Anna planted a small garden in the brief summer months and filled the cabin with music at dusk. Eleanor taught children from nearby homesteads when weather allowed, her stories shaping young minds with kindness rather than fear. Caleb trapped less and built more, discovering satisfaction in creating something meant to last beyond himself. Travelers began to stop, drawn by smoke and reputation. Some stayed at night. Some stayed longer. No one was turned away lightly. The cabin became a place where broken people paused, warmed, and remembered how to breathe. Caleb watched this happen with quiet pride, understanding that the refuge he had once built for solitude had become something larger without losing its soul. On evenings when the sun dipped low and painted the snow gold, Anna would stand on the porch beside him. She would lean into his shoulder, and Caleb would rest his hand over hers, a simple gesture that spoke of choice renewed each day. He no longer stood with his back to the wall. He faced outward, grounded. The mountains remained what they had always been, dangerous and honest. They still demanded respect. But now, within their vast indifference, stood a home shaped by resilience, mercy, and shared purpose. Caleb understood then that solitude had been a season, not a destiny. The storm that brought Anna and Eleanor to his door had taken something from him. Yes, but it had given far more in return. And as winter settled again over the bitter glass range, the light in his cabin burned steady, promising not an end, but a beginning.